Today, I'd like to demonstrate the process of doing a physical count from beginning to end for all processes involved in Sage and on the scanners. I will start off by going into Sage's physical count worksheet and I will choose freeze items only. I'm going to do one warehouse today, so I'll enter that in as my value and I'll choose preview. If I receive any warnings about unposted data, I should resolve these issues before I start my count. Now I can go into Sage's physical count entry, enter my warehouse code, move to the Lines tab, and see all the my items are frozen and the quantities counted are all set to 0. One option that you do not want to use in Sage is clear frozen items. If you do use that option and press preview, all of the frozen items would be cleared from the freeze file, including all data that had been collected on the scanners, as you can see. The second most important option that you should never use in Sage is the default quantity counted to quantity on hand. If I do use that option, what you will notice is that when I move into Sage's physical count and go to the Lines tab, all my items are frozen and the quantities counted match the quantities on hand. Normally, the Sage side processes are handled by front office personnel, but in certain situations are performed by warehouse managers. One very important note for front office and warehouse managers. In Sage version 5, 2017 and below, the data from the scanners is imported by the barcode module unattended barcode transaction import program. In Sage version 6, 2018 and above, the data collected by the scanners is imported through the Mobility for Barcode module using either the Inventory Easy Import or the Easy Import program. Once you press Proceed on the import program, the data will begin flowing into Sage's physical count as the users are pressing the Send button on their devices. Now we will move on to the processes inside a Scanco warehouse. The first option that must be enabled is Allow Physical Count Activities. Depending on which application you want to use, you will either enable Allow Physical Count by Item or Allow Physical Count by Bin. Physical Count by Item is a nice application when you have one item in each bin. Allow Physical Count by Bin is a nice application when you have multiple items in the same bin. To further explain the differences between Count by Item and Count by Bin, in Count by Item, you would collect the item, bin, quantity. Item, bin, quantity. That's 6 entries. In Count by Bin, you will enter the starting bin number and then collect item, quantity, item, quantity. That's only 4 entries, saving 1 entry, the bin number, per scan. Please note, Count by Item is the application you will use in non-multi-bin warehouses. Enabling Freeze File Not Required will allow you to scan items when your warehouse is not frozen. Allow Add Items to Freeze will allow you to scan items when not frozen and warn you that they are not frozen. One important note about the item lookup and the freeze options. When Freeze File Not Required is enabled, all items will be available in the lookup. When Allow Add to Freeze File is enabled, items that are currently frozen will be in the lookup. To add an item that's not frozen, you would have to key it in or scan it in. When Allow Add to Freeze File is not enabled, only the items frozen would be in the item lookup, and the user cannot proceed with collecting any other items. The Scan Each feature has 3 options: No Scan Each, Allow Scan Each, and Scan Each Always Enabled. No Scan Each will remove the Scan Each button from the device. Allow Scan Each allows the user to turn Scan Each on and off on the device. Scan Each Always Enabled forces the user to scan each item and they cannot disable Scan Each on the device. The Unit of Measure prompt has 3 options. Use Default No Prompt means there will be no prompt during scanning. Use Default Prompt for Change will fill the Unit of Measure prompt in with the item's standard unit of measure, allowing the user to press Enter to accept that unit of measure or key in or look up a different unit of measure. Prompt with no default will stop at a blank unit of measure prompt, allowing the user to key in, scan in, or look up a unit of measure. Default Initial Prompt has 2 options. You can either have your initial prompt in Physical Count by Bin be an item prompt or a pallet prompt. Regarding cycle counts, Normally, inventory is not frozen during a cycle count. The recommended option for that situation is to enable freeze file not required. For multi-bin warehouses, also enable freeze all items in bin when first item is collected. In count by item, at my warehouse prompt, I can key in a part of a warehouse code that I know and use my lookup button to filter off all other warehouses, as shown here. All these warehouses contain a 9. If my warehouse prompt is blank and I use the lookup, I can see all available warehouses. By choosing a warehouse from my lookup, it moves forward directly to the item prompt. You will notice that I have the on-screen keyboard available to me. That is shown in the menu as the keyboard. Regarding the on-screen keyboard, the programming will remember which prompts you want to use the keyboard at. Meaning, if you always use the on-screen keyboard at the quantity prompt, but not at the item or the bin prompt, then the programming will remember to always display the keyboard at the quantity prompt. You also have the option to hide the keyboard for when you're scanning. I will scan my item and I move forward to my bin prompt. Scan my bin and I'm at my quantity prompt. My numeric keyboard is displayed, although I can hide it and scan in a quantity. Now you will notice that I return to the item prompt and the keyboard is not displayed. If I do choose to use the keyboard, I can enter in part of an item number that I do know and use my lookup to filter off all other items. Once I choose my item from my lookup, the program does move forward to the bin prompt. At the bin prompt, you do have the lookup available. It will show all available bins for your warehouse. At the quantity prompt, once again, if you have the keyboard up, then it will always be displayed so that you can use it and press the done button. Now I will arrive back at my item prompt, and as I left my keyboard up, it is now up at my item prompt. This does not stop me from scanning items, but it does help me anytime I need an on-screen keyboard. Now I will show the process for collecting lot-controlled items. Scan your lot-controlled item, and then enter in your bin. You will arrive at a lot prompt. You can scan your lot number, and then enter your quantity. Now the process for collecting serialized items. Scan your serialized item number, enter your bin, and then collect your serial number. You will notice that the program returns to the serial prompt so that you can collect your next serial number for that item. In addition, the quantity of serial numbers scanned is displayed directly above the serial number prompt. I'll collect my second serial number, and now my quantity scanned is 2. I'll scan a third serial number. Now my quantity scanned is 3. Anytime you need to move back to a different prompt, you can always touch that field with your finger. Here I've opened up my bin prompt so I can change the bin and continue collecting serial numbers for this item. If I need to change the item I'm collecting, I simply touch the prompt to open up the item prompt. I will now demonstrate the process when freeze file not required and allow add item to freeze are both disabled. After item entry, you will receive a message that indicates that the item is not frozen and the user does not have permission to add it. I will now demonstrate the process where freeze file not required is disabled and allow add item to freeze file is enabled. After item entry, the program will display an item error message where it indicates the item is not found in the freeze file, but is asking, would you like to add it to the freeze file? Choosing no would move back to the item prompt. Choosing yes will allow the user to move forward with data collection. I will now demonstrate what happens when you enter in an incorrect item number. As you can see, all information entered is validated. An incorrect entry will present an error message. Now I will show you the process for collecting data with the Scan Each option enabled. On the menu, you will find the Scan Each option. You will be asked to confirm that you want to enable Scan Each, and you will notice now that at the top, my Scan Each icon is a solid white, indicating that it is currently on. The Scan Each process for multi-bin warehouses would be to collect the item number, then collect the bin number, and a quantity of 1 would be written as the quantity collected. Now you have to scan the item and bin number again to collect your next item. Now my screen indicates that I have a quantity 2 collected for that particular item. Processing lot-controlled items with Scan Each enabled requires that you enter the item number, then the bin number, your lot number, and a quantity of 1 was written for that item. The process for serialized items with Scan Each enabled, collect your item, enter your bin, enter your serial number, and the program returns to the item prompt. I will now demonstrate the options where Scan Each is set to No Scan Each. What you will notice is that on the menu, there is no Scan Each option when Scan Each is disabled. I will now demonstrate the Scan Each option is set to Scan Each Always Enabled. What you will note is that my Scan Each icon at the top bar is currently in white. When I press it, I cannot disable it. On the menu, it's a solid blue, and yet choosing it will not disable it. This forces the user to scan every item. Now I will demonstrate the unit of measure prompt set to Use Default Prompt for Change. During data collection, the program will prompt for the unit of measure. You do have the option of keying in any valid unit of measure or using the lookup to see other available units of measure. If I choose box as my unit of measure, then I can collect my bin number. And for this demonstration, I will enter a quantity of 1 box, which is equal to 100 items. I will move into the review section. And what you will now see is that I have collected a quantity of 100 of this item. I will now demonstrate the unit of measure prompt set to prompt with no default. After collecting my item, I arrive at an empty unit of measure prompt. I still have the option of using the keyboard to key in a valid unit of measure and move forward, or to use the lookup. In addition to data collection, on the menu you will find the review feature as well. This is showing all of the data that has been collected. Once I choose an item that I have collected, it will be displayed. And then on the menu, I have the options of deleting what is displayed, or deleting all data for that lot number, or printing a barcode label if I have Scanco SkyPrint. If you choose to delete the data, you will get a confirmation. I will now demonstrate the Count by Bin program, which is a very nice program when you have multiple items in the same bin and you're counting your warehouse in a logical bin order. After entering my warehouse, I will arrive at my starting bin prompt. Enter in the first bin that you will be collecting data for. After entering my starting bin location, I will arrive at one of 2 prompts, either the pallet prompt or the item prompt, depending on what my default initial prompt is set to. If I need to change from pallets to items, I simply choose the item icon off of the menu. If I need to move back to pallets, I simply choose the pallet icon off of the menu. During pallet collection, I am presented with a message: is this pallet complete? If I answer yes, all of the items on that pallet will be counted automatically. If I answer no, then I must collect all of the items on the pallet manually. The cancel button moves back to the pallet prompt. During this demonstration, I will choose yes, and now all of those items on that pallet have been marked as counted. I will collect my second pallet number, and I will indicate no. During this process, I will have to scan each item and quantity until I have collected all of the items. To move to a different pallet, simply touch the pallet field to open the prompt. Once I have collected all my items in this particular bin, off of the menu, I can choose Next Bin. This will advance me to the next logical bin. And you will notice that at the pallet prompt and at the item prompt, I do have the Next Bin option available to me. It will continue to move through the bins logically so that you can continue counting your warehouse, one bin at a time. After you have successfully collected all of your data, off of the menu, you will want to choose the Send icon. There is a confirmation message that you are submitting your data. Choosing no would return to the item prompt. Choosing yes will mark all the items collected as being posted. The results button will indicate whether or not all of your records have been successfully transferred to the physical count program. To finish the physical count process on the Sage side, you would go into Sage's physical count entry, enter in your warehouse code, move to the Lines tab, then you can review all of the items plus quantities counted. Then by pressing the printer button in the lower right-hand corner, you'll be prompted to save any changes that you may have made in the physical count entry screen. If you choose yes, then you will be prompted to run the physical count variance register. You can choose preview to look at the data on your screen. You will be prompted for how you would like to see the data, and then you can press proceed. The physical count worksheet will be displayed, and you can review all of the numbers in totals there. When you choose to close the physical count variance register, you will be prompted, do you want to print the daily transaction register? If you choose yes, the daily transaction register screen will be presented and you can preview to have that report on your screen. If you agree with all the numbers contained in the daily transaction register, once you close the daily transaction register report, you will be prompted, do you want to update the daily transaction register? This is the last step before all of your inventory totals will be affected. Choose wisely. Once you choose yes, the process is completed. As you can see, the Scanco physical count applications allow for flexibility and accurate data collection in a very efficient manner. Thank you for your time.